All right, welcome everybody. This is exciting to see you all on. I see Angie and Alicia and Joyce and Amanda, Karen, Janet, Colleen. Someone's on their iPhone, Julia, Doreen, Rachel, Michael. So we've got a lot of people. Of course, I see Baba Squarey. I can't do a webinar without Baba Squarey. We've got some wonderful presenters for you today. I'm Sarah Cooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW. I apologize if I sound a little nasal. Some of you won't even notice that because I'm always a little nasal. But I'm just getting over what I think was probably COVID for the second time. But I don't know because I refused to test. So I just simply isolated myself for about 5 days and laid in bed and drank a lot of chicken soup and watched the news, this horrific experience that's going on in Israel, sending them lots of prayers. And I'm getting better. So I am the CEO of SCW Fitness Education and also Water in Motion and the new SEAT training. It's supported exercise for ageless training. It's in a chair, and then you also stand up and do it holding onto a chair. Today, we're going to be talking about corrective exercise for functional movement. And the focus is to really look at the world of functional movement and corrective exercise to equip us with the knowledge and the skills to elevate our training for ourselves and our clients so they're more successful. So if you're looking to take your fitness to the next level, you've got to be able to get the knowledge and the insight of functional movement and corrective exercise for a healthier, stronger, and a more balanced body. So we have wonderful people joining us. We have Gail Bannister-Munn, who's with us. She is the flexibility specialist and core yoga and Pilates coach with the New York Jets football team. And she's also managing not one, not two, not three, but 6 Crunch Fitnesses in New York. And she does a great deal of training with SCW Fitness. And she's going to be teaching the group strength program that we're going to be offering this coming year in 2024. And it's very exciting for us that she's a certified specialist, oh my gosh, between yoga and Thai massage and NASM and blah, 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 everybody in the world. We also have Patrick Mummy with us, who is actually a former baseball scholarship to San Diego State University. And he graduated with a degree in athletic training and unfortunately injured himself pretty severely while he was training with the university. And he has founded Symmetry for Health. It's got an awarded and patented measurable system for postural assessment and corrective exercise. It's measurable. And both Gail and I are victim to this are doing this program. I'm doing this program. I have a horrible back and I've had 3 knee surgeries. It's amazing. And he also wrote 3 books. He wrote The Physics of Pain, Becoming Pain-Free. That's his newest book. And he's a real expert on postural assessment. And then tonight, I'm really, really excited to have Dylan Foss with us. Dylan has presented at our Nutrition Coaching Summit. We got introduced to him by Paul Christopher, our good friend and presenter at Manias. Dylan's going to be coming to us and be in our Florida Mania convention if he can pull himself away from his 6-month-old son. He's actually a board certified and licensed athletic trainer and a former collegiate basketball player. And he's got a degree in athletic training and a master's degree in nutrition for human performance. So he runs a concierge business. It's called Limitless Theory, and he specializes in recovery services. He's out of Florida, and it's movement that's efficiency-based exercises, healthy eating and nutrition supplementation for clients of all ages, abilities, and aspirations. So Dylan has very generously and very quickly agreed to be on this webinar tonight because Paul is doing a wonderful heartfelt benefit for a dear friend of his that passed away from breast cancer. So we thank you for Patrick for being with us, and Dylan and Gail. So I'm just going to launch right in. And Gail, I'm starting with you. Why is understanding functional movement patterns crucial for both everyday activities and athletic performance?
I would ask Patrick that question.
All right, Patrick.
Passing that one.
He's passing the buck.
Because he has all the systems in place. I'm going to pass that one to Patrick. Go, Pat.
Okay, touche. Well, here's what I always tell people, right? What we don't ever talk to people about is the blueprint of the human body and how it relates to gravity and how it relates to then functional movement. And your first year of life literally takes you 1 year from being on your back all the way up to standing to be able to get to the point where you can actually stand and move. And what people don't realize that there's 12 systems in the body. Musculoskeletal is just, there's 2 of them, right? You got cardiovascular, lymphatic, digestive, et cetera, but all of those jumpstart literally in 1 year in terms of getting to the point where you can stand and then move, so that your body is A, posturally erect correctly around the force of gravity, so that B, you can actually move effectively around that force. And what ends up happening is theoretically movement begets good posture begets good movement, and we are as a society supposed to be hunters and gatherers from the time that we were young, which means that we're moving 80% of the day, because movement is essential for all of our systems to work effectively. And we all know that we don't have that in our technology driven society. We start sitting at the age of 5 to go to school and sit more in the high school, to sit more in college, to get a job, where most of our clients that we see or treat have been sitting for a career and a lifetime. And so you combine all these negative influences in our society, and the component or the balance of what are called intrinsic and dynamic muscles. Intrinsic muscles hold you, dynamic muscles move you. That balance becomes really imbalanced over time, and your body fights and fights to hold yourself up and move correctly to keep all these systems working until it can't. And then we start getting injuries and pain and tightness as a result of that. And so functional movement is absolutely essential consistently from a young age to keep everything working. And what we see as trainers and as experts in our field is a byproduct of not incorporating that consistent movement from an early age. And what we're seeing is the reaction of all that negativity. So movement's everything.
Movement's everything.
And that's why I picked him. Told you he was there.
And that really it hit the nail on the head. What I would like you guys to do at home is move your mouse and go to the bottom of the screen. You're going to see your green share button. Move to the left of that. There's your chat button. Click on it and very quickly type in. You don't even have to put your name. Just type in where you're from, the city and state. Do me a favor, type it in, because what I want you to do is be aware that you can always enter a question in. I'm looking at people from Massachusetts, Connecticut, Oregon, Texas, Illinois, New Jersey, Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Alabama, Texas. All right, everybody's coming in. This is awesome. But if you have a question, we really do try to pay attention. This is your webinar. We have 370 people that have registered, and we've already got almost 80 people that are live. So this is for you. When we're looking at this balance of everyday activities and athletic performance, Dylan, how does functional movement play into that?
So I thoroughly agree with everything that Patrick said. Where I would add or chime in 2 words that are really important to me are efficiency and pressure. So we talk about movement efficiency. How efficiently can we create force to manage the pressure, like Patrick talked about, that we're dealing with from gravity and the ground below us. And, you know, we have a intrinsic amount of pressure based on the fact that we have mass, right? So our muscles, as we stand, are already trying to manage pressure. And that starts with being able to manage the pressure of your breath, right? That can go down a whole rabbit hole itself. But ultimately, you want to be able to create force and move efficiently. And in order to do so, you have to be able to manage the pressures that are coming from every which direction that you are dealing with. And then you have to overcome them in order to move in whatever direction you desire, right? So as simple as it sounds, you know, there is constantly wind playing on us, and it might be a funny thought when you're just sitting there not really feeling it. But if you were to ride your bike against the wind, you would notice you have to create more force. You have to move efficiently. And if you're not moving efficiently, you're compensating and putting pressure on the wrong joints, the wrong ligaments, the wrong tendons. And ultimately, you are increasing your chance of injury as a result. And you're also just minimizing the amount of time that you're going to be able to do such exercise properly, right? So your performance levels go down if you're not moving efficiently. And ultimately, if you can't manage the pressure efficiently, you increase your chance of injury. So it doesn't matter if you're just picking something up off of the ground, like my 6-month-old son, right? Or if I am, you know, putting a heavy piece of luggage overhead in a compartment in a weird body position, right? I'm managing pressures. It's all, you know, new to my body. So being able to adjust and manage those pressures, move efficiently, and have the proper connections allows you to do so, and allows you to do so for a long period of time with whatever endeavor that you have in mind.
And Gail, how are you managing some of the muscle imbalances that your athletes encounter? Let's just start with the athletes. And how do you manage these professionals you're working with?
Well, with the Jets, we have a whole system in place that they will give me the assessments prior to walking in the building. So I get all of that, the FMS. I'm working on getting symmetry in there, which will help us a lot. Like Dylan had said, the homework that comes afterwards, which is what brings the symmetry into it to do the homework. But the assessment, we do the FMS. I don't know if anybody knows about that, the functional movement systems. We have the level 1 and level 2 and level 3. So we will see that before. A lot of things people don't know behind the scenes of athletes. It's like, I'll use the NFL. Before they leave at the end of the season, we do a whole full assessment of them before they leave. And then when they come back, we do another assessment of them to see where the difference is before. So we know what we're dealing with. Because sometimes the guys may not work out off season. They might say, you know what, I'm done when I go back. Or some guys will work out. So we have a before and after assessment so we know what we're working with. Hopefully that helps.
And with personal training clients, the clients that maybe Crunch
Personal
deals
training
with.
clients, I have an assessment in place, which is the FMS as well. But now I'm bringing in the symmetry as well, now that I can do a whole assessment on that, which I have before and after pictures. And like Patrick says, the first thing we look at now is the SI joint and the hip displacement. And people, we were taught differently to look at the feet and the gait, but looking at the hips now is just changes the game now in the gaits that you're able to adjust immediately to say, oh, wow. I mean, I'm a people watcher. And flying in 5 cities in 6 weeks. And I sit at the airport like this going, oh, the shoe's off. Oh, this off. This is hip off. How they sit is off. And I'm like, but now your eyes can't shut down from assessing people anymore. Even in myself, I'm like, okay, you need to walk straight because you're off right now. But I think your eyes do adjust now once you know what you're looking for based on the education, the symmetry, and the FMS from that point on.
And before we turned the camera on, Gail and I were talking a little bit about we are both doing the symmetry program because of imbalances we have. And Patrick, I had asked you, what's one of the most common imbalances that you find that you don't think typically people are looking for?
Ooh, that's a good
Well, so I think everybody here on this panel can agree that education is paramount for when our clients come in. And what I've done and what I've realized that the missing piece is that objective measurement piece. And a lot of times when we're taught in our educational background, you know, we, like Gail was talking about, we're mainly subjectively looking at people. We look at gait pattern, we look at imbalances, we look at dysfunctional movement patterns when it, you know, but it tends to be more subjective. Most of my clients come in and don't realize that the pelvis is made of two halves. I mean, they really think that the pelvis is one unit and that it doesn't have these joints and these articulations to it, which it kind of surprises me. But, you know, most people aren't experts in the body when they come in, so they don't know what they don't know. But the one thing that we measure, the first thing that we measure is what's called the tilt of your PSIs to your ASIs, is posterior to anterior, left and right pelvic tilt. I was never taught to measure that. In fact, there's very rare cases where you're even ever taught even look at that or even especially measure it. But it is the biggest dysfunction that we see is one hip will be way more posterior or anterior to the other one. And when you have that imbalance at your pelvic location, which is really where your center of mass is designed to be to help balance and move you around the force of gravity, it just literally cascades to a whole plethora of compensation patterns that your body has to counter adjust. It's all Newton's third law, action reaction. If you know what you're doing, you know the byproduct of what you're seeing with that dysfunction, especially if you do FMS like Gail's talking about. So the system that I created really meshes well with systems like FMS, because I'm going at it more from a static postural perspective versus a functional perspective. But you have to have the two components in order to really understand that assessment. But the SI joint, right, the sacroiliac joint, is the one that's affected the most by that, which then leads up to the spine and down all the way down through the feet. But that is the biggest dysfunction that we see.
That's pretty incredible. I know, being one of your victims, I mean clients, that I figured that out, or you guys pointed that out to me, is that I got, my right hip is very anterior, my left hip is more posterior. I've got this curvature in my back that either, you know, was it the chicken or the egg, which caused which? Regardless of which caused which, we can do some exercises to realign our body. And what I found fascinating is, I always say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I'm so numbers driven when it comes to running my business. I know exactly how many people have registered for certifications or attending a convention, or I mean, daily. Carter, who's running this webinar today, brilliant with technology, provides those numbers to us every day. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So it was wonderful to be assessed in person, but what was also great is that I could get assessed via Zoom, and that blew me away that it was so accurate. Dylan, you were going to share something?
Yeah, just to shine light on it, two things. Patrick, you know, doing the more of the static posture, structure dictates function, right? So we know that if your structure is misaligned, I always relate it to a car. If your wheels are misaligned, you're not going to expect to drive down the highway without some feedback, right? So that's really an easy way that I try to get my clients to understand, and I always try to relate it and give an analogy towards something that's easy and basic and everyday. And secondary to that, when you can't measure something, you can't manage it. The first thing we do in terms of like cellular health, blood health, you go get blood work done, right? The major thing in nutrition and human optimization, anti-aging, all of that stuff right now is you get your genetic testing and you get your blood work. And from there, now you're not guessing at what you need to eat and what you need to supplement with. You know what it is. So the same thing should apply to movement. And I think that's been lost for a while, and it's been overlooked. So I'm glad to hear that it is being more implemented.
And for the assessment, we just talked about one of the key considerations Patrick relies on, are the SI joint and the hip placement. What are your thoughts on that, Dylan? Is that, and then how do you prescribe these exercises for people, saying you need to stretch this, you need to strengthen that, and how in the heck do we get them to do it?
Yeah, so that's where I think the education comes in. Like Patrick said, you have to educate because unfortunately it's not taught, at all throughout traditional school. The first 12 years of school, you're not taught anything about your body unless you happen to take an anatomy class in 10th or 11th grade, and you probably still don't know anything at that point. So I really try to just hyper educate my clients. I will send them home with infographics and things that kind of give them insight. I always encourage them, if you have a pain, if you are dealing with some sort of symptom, open your phone and go, what does the shoulder look like? What does the hip look like? And look at an anatomical picture, because when you come in, you go, oh, I have, it's just over here kind of hurts. That doesn't give me any information. I can, break you down and get the information out of you, but it's much easier to relay the information to someone who has an understanding of what the body looks like underneath the skin. And in terms of how to give the exercises or what to prescribe, I would say the SI joints play the biggest role that I've seen too. Everyone has low back pain, but teaching people the X patterns of how the body works usually helps as well. And at that point, they can integrate the idea of improving that with every exercise we do. I don't want them to think that they only have to do 4 exercises and those are the only things that are going to help improve their SI joints. If you do every exercise consciously thinking of what the point of it is, what's the purpose, you can improve those movement patterns and positions with everything you do.
And Gail, what are your thoughts on that? On the assessment?
I was gonna say that one of the things that Patrick did last year, Dallas, right? Patrick was the first time I met you. So Patrick had done an assessment on me before I had my knee replacement. And my numbers were horrific. Let me just say that. And I'm being honest. And then I did the knee replacement and the numbers dropped because my SI joints, I'm gas practice, were off. But the other thing that's off now with me is my right leg is now longer than my left leg. And I'm conscious of that, which throws it off again. But because of the exercises, I kind of have to make sure that I'm doing hip mobility exercises, SI joint exercises, a lot of that more than I normally do. The nice thing about my trainer, we're doing a lot of bridges, Patrick, we're happy to hear that. A lot of rotation for the SI joints, but people don't realize that, like you just said, Dylan, the X factor. People don't realize that there is an X factor, in the NFL, we always say, like Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, right? We always say, we wish he tore both of them because it would heal evenly. Now he's compensating. So now everything gets triggered, everything gets thrown. So we have to be mindful now of that because he tracks back on his right leg to throw the ball. So now, guess what? The X factor comes into play where we have to constantly be balancing both sides where we're treating him now. And it's the best way of explaining it that way. It's like, okay, we always say, oh, you broke your ankle? God, I wish you broke the other ankle because we could work it better that way. So I'm happy to go get my other leg knee replacement next year because I'm going to tell the doctor, hey, I'm 1/2 inch off on my left. Could you make it balanced right now? So everything for Patrick will be now even.
But that's so fascinating. My husband got that the meniscus, he had to get his meniscus reattached because he tore it all the way off and they didn't want to just get rid of it and give him a knee replacement. They put it back in and they did a root repair. So they affixed it to the spot. They have been training the heck out of that leg. He is so much stronger on that leg than the other leg now.
Yeah.
And so now the physical therapist is having to do the balance. I never thought about that. So are you saying now after a knee replacement that one of your legs shifted in length?
Oh, I can show you when I see you in Boston. My left foot is about 1/2 inch shorter than my right because the knees, it's longer.
This happens. This happens all the time with knee replacement. Sometimes they take somebody who was bow-legged and suddenly they make their legs straight and then they get 6 weeks of physical therapy and they're dumped on us as their trainer.
I have to be very mindful of it now. So I do stretch, Patrick. I have to be very mindful of it. It's literally 1/2 inch. If I lay on the floor and show you, you'll see it. But if I'm standing, you wouldn't see it. But Patrick will see that my psoas and my hips are off. And he'll come up behind me and go, "Did you do your exercises?" And I look at him and go, "I'm working on it."
So how do we get our clients to do, when we need them to do certain exercises that strengthen areas or stretch areas, or improve range of motion, not just flexibility. How do we get them to do these exercises? Like Dylan, I know you said it was really funny. You have to use your example. It was great.
How it's
That
easier
is-
to give kids homework because they're more likely to do it. Yeah, I do think that's true, especially as someone who has a family, right, and a child now. It's like my mind is everywhere else but me when I'm basically doing anything throughout the day, unless I am away from the family in the gym setting. That's when I can really focus on it. So for me, as somebody who is trying to teach and re-educate and kind of change the perspective of clients, it's like I want them to do it in person with me and make sure they're doing it right. Encourage them to do it outside of that. Make sure they do it with me every time. If they do it outside of that, that's just extra icing on the cake. But prioritize it early on in the workout or the session.
And so Patrick, how do you get like crazy people like Gail and myself actually to do the exercises? I have my own thing.
I don't, not you guys, but the traditional public. Yeah, no, you've been actually a lot better lately, so I'm very proud of you for that, right? No, all joking aside, I've spent 26 years developing a system to make sure that people understand their responsibility for homework. We live in a society where we are conditioned to rely on practitioners or trainers to do the work for us or to train us in person. And then we go back home to our dysfunctional lives and everything goes right back to where it was in terms of that compensation patterns that we develop. So my biggest beef with the educational system is it's all based on reactive treatment or reactive medicine. So we wait for you to break and then we try to patch you up with duct tape and Windex, which fix most everything anyway. But we don't talk about preventative medicine, especially early on as children, right? The only thing that we teach kids preventively really is brushing your teeth. And so when you get older, you know that you have to wake up every day and brush your teeth at least once a day, if not twice a day. And I would go so far as to say that the insurance companies, the only ones that actually pay for preventative treatments is the dental industry, because they don't want to do root canals later in life because they know how much money they're saving. So go back to the educational piece. We have to educate people when we see them to let them understand that they have to be a proactive participant in whatever goals they're trying to achieve, whether it is nutrition, right? You can't get somebody to come in and just eat well in your office and then they go home and eat Krispy Kremes every day. They have to go home and make a habitual change, but they have to have the education behind it, and they have to have the support to understand that they're going in the right direction, right? Which means blood work that Dylan's talking about, which means, tracking weight loss, tracking fat percentage, all that other stuff that goes with that. If you're not assessing it every session, then people don't have a goal or understand, where they are, where they're going. And that's the biggest thing that I've felt was missing, is the fact that people want to get better. They really do. They want to get better, but they just need to understand what to do, how to do it, and be held accountable for it, which is why I go on the whole lecture aspect of you got to charge it. You got to charge people for it, or they won't take you seriously and they won't go home and do the homework. So you have to kind of build that in. If you're a trainer listening to this, it's the biggest thing that I preach is you've got to build in home work for your clients in order to sustain long-term goals, period.
I want to
it's
add on.
interesting.
Can I add on to Patrick too? And if they don't,
Please, Gail.
If they don't add on to the homework, they're coming back with the same recurrence to you all the time. Hey, if you want to keep getting the money, go for it. But at some point, you do want your clients to be successful. So with what I do, they see an immediate change in the body, and I do give them their homework, and then they come back 2 weeks later and they complain about the same thing again. And I'm like, did you do your homework? And they go, no. So, but then it's going to be chronic. then you're going to keep coming to me. You can keep dropping the cash. That's fine with me. I love getting cash, but I want to heal you. At some point, I'm going to say to you, if you don't do your homework, I'm going to turn you away as a client because you're not making me successful in my business.
That's
And
interesting.
you know.
I do see a comment from Jamie, which I think is very, very important. Once an injury, always an injury.
Yes.
Like I just am prone to having a bad back. I'm just prone because I live like an idiot life that I ski like a lunatic. I'm gonna have bad knees. So I have to strengthen my hamstrings and my quads, make sure I maintain hip flexibility. It's just an ankle mobility. So these are exercises for life. And there's a very interesting bill, and I'm gonna ask Carter, if you would mind putting that link in from IHRSA, IHRSA. They have the FIT bill, PHIT, and it's actually located, and the focus is preventative medicine. This is where you can use your HSA or your FSA. You can pay for your health club. You can pay for your kids' sports. You can't buy a Peloton, but you can pay for exercise program as preventative medicine and pay with pre-tax dollars. So instead of, we pay like 30% of our income in taxes or 50% of our income in taxes, depending what level you are, you can pay almost half of that, which is great under the FIT bill. And it's limited to $1,000 per person and $2,000 per household, that you can use this benefit and get this tax deduction back. So I'm going to ask Carter, and I think he's already looking for it because I know him. I think he already found it. There it is. Guy's a genius. It's right in there in the chat box. But with one click, you can send a message to your state representative to have them support this bill. I know we need the revenue coming into our government, but we need to support this preventative medicine. And that, I think, is what you're talking about, Gail.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patrick and Dylan. And as an industry, we need to take a stand. And yes, we need to vote for this, but we need to also encourage our clients and our students to vote for this. I'm on a committee with the National Health and Fitness Association. So I'm very committed to this. I think we need to educate our public. And $1,000, that's going to cover, for some health clubs, that'll cover a whole year of membership. For others, it's only, if you belong to Lifetime, what is that? Barely 3 months, but it's still something. So, all right, what are some practical ways to seamlessly incorporate corrective exercises into our existing workout regimes? What are some of the ways that we can get them to do these exercises to make it effective so we don't compromise effectiveness? Patrick, you're kind of nodding a little bit.
It's so to me, everybody's used to technology. You have to incorporate. I have a love-hate relationship with technology, but I've spent 26 years trying to develop something that would effectively work in terms of what you're just talking about. You have to give people a platform to be able to not only educate them at home, but also to be able to support them at home when you're requiring them to do the homework that you want them to do. So I can't tell you how much god awful amount of money I've spent on developing the current software that I have. But its full intent is to educate and support clients and to motivate them. In fact, we go so far in our app that when they go home and they do their routine every day, they've got to click the check mark, which then starts to provide an accountability compliance percentage that they see every time when they log on, right? So if they're doing their stuff once a day, they get 100%, big old circle right in their app when they log on. But it also allows me as a practitioner to be able to educate them when they come back. If they're still complaining about their pain and they have a 50% compliance, I just shake my head, right? I used to take it personally, now I don't, because you have to get out what you put in. And technology is there. There's all kinds of different apps out there that can help support what you're doing, whether it's the Bridge app from, for personal training, or our app, which is more of the, the stretching, what we call the scientific yoga aspect of getting your frame set before you work out every day. You have to educate and support people. And they have to be, there's got to be a partnership. And that's my biggest kind of takeaway for, what we were just talking about, is that people have to have a partnership with the trainer that they're with away from the session. Because if you don't have that forum to be able to support them when they're away from you, they're not going to do it. They will not do it. They will not perform it. They will not do it. There's no incentive for them to do it unless you give them the education platform and you charge them, period.
And that's interesting. I mean, we get reminders to go visit our dentist. I get an automatic, we send out, SCW sends out, a text message reminding people about a webinar. We need reminding.
Correct.
So if you guys are at home and you don't have a sophisticated system to remind your clients when they've got, let's say, a PT appointment with you, to just make sure that they show up on time, or that they come a half an hour early and do some of the exercises, just a little bit of cardio to heat their body up. These reminders are essential. And if you don't have a sophisticated system, even sending out, a nightly text message or a 3-time-a-week text message to people, now that's valuable. That will help them comply. Dylan, do you have a system? You do this very high-end concierge service. How do you get your clients, make sure they're there on time, make sure they're, at least trying to do some of these exercises with you at home?
Yeah, so I am currently building up a library of the exercises that I prescribe the most for them to have that option, to be able to literally, just like Patrick said, pay for it and have the person that they do have the connection with and the relationship with right there at their disposal, in their hands, on their phone. That way they do have incentive. I definitely am over the top sometimes with catching up with people, and it's not like, hey, do your exercises in a text. It's just like, hey, how's it going? How do you feel the next day? And I definitely do remind people that you can't expect, from a personal training perspective, you see someone 2 to 3 times. At max, you're seeing them for an hour. There's 164 hours in the week, right? It's like, you saw me for 3 of them and you want all your problems to go away? Come on, like, let's be realistic, right? So, there has to be some level of conversation that gives them realistic expectations, and what was SMART goals, right? Those are the classic way of like regulating and giving yourself realistic goals. You just have to have that conversation. And like Patrick said, and like I've now noticed over the last couple of years, it really is mandatory that you have somewhere that they can go, that they can look to you, see your exercises, be understanding of your cues and the way that you talk and the way that you prescribe them, and feel accountable because they are paying for it. So that's moving forward. That's what I'm working on as well.
And I really like that. I'm just gonna draw a little bit of a comparison. I remember when I got one of my knee surgeries, the doctor called me the next day to see how I was doing.
That's
and I was like, oh my God. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was shut, not the PA, not the physician's assistant, not the nurse, not some front desk person. The doctor himself called me. And I thought, so when I hear you talk about, having a conversation, keeping a dialogue, communicating with your client, it does take that extra time, but a text message doesn't have to be a whole phone call. It can be a quick text, just checking in, how you doing? Great workout yesterday.
Yeah.
That's
Sometimes, honestly, I just I'm terrible with text messaging. I'm the worst. But I am really good at having the idea, hey, reach out to so and then never answering. But I will check in and at least get the feedback like, hey, how's it going? Do you feel better after yesterday's session? And I might glance at it and not, while I'm in the car driving to the next person or whatever. And
Mhm.
if it's good, if it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, I'm in nauseating pain, I probably am just going to give it like a thumbs up. I'm glad, it went well, something like that. So it is just
Yeah.
the time or the thought to check in.
And that's why Patrick built an automatic system.
Yeah, that's
Because
great.
there's not enough hours, Gail.
I'm gonna give it from two standpoints. So I run 6 Crunch Fitnesses, and our trainers, you guys have your own businesses, so you have your own system in place. So do I. For me to hold my clients accountable to do their stretches, if they come in and they say, oh, well, I didn't do it, they're paying for me an hour. That first 15 minutes, I'm going to do the stretches. In the last 45 minutes, I'm going to do the work. And they go, oh, you wasted 15 minutes. I'm like, no, you were supposed to do that before you got here. So either you get here 15 minutes early and start doing it before we start our hour on time session. So if our session is 9, should be here at 8:45, starting to do the stretches before. But from a business company, Crunch Fitness, our trainers love the fact that if the clients don't get there early to do their stretches or warm up, they do it as part of the session, they still get paid. And they love that because now they're holding them accountable, and they're holding them accountable for the business side of it. You know what I'm saying? So if they have a 30-minute session or a 45-minute session, they just kill 15 minutes making sure their client is getting the requirements that they need to see for the success story to show, hey, this is why you're doing this. So I think as trainers in a fitness facility, we're so caught up in that hour of working them out, but not putting in a 15-minute before or 15-minute in that hour as part of the module to get the successes that we need to get for our clients.
If
Yeah.
I could add in really quickly, sorry.
Yes.
I know Patrick comes from the athletic training background as well. We used to have a rule, if you walked into the athletic training room as an athlete and you went and laid on the table and waited for passive treatment, you got nothing. You would just sit there because you had to do everyone had their folder of exercises, and it was a mandatory 5 minutes of rolling out, 5 minutes of airdyne bike, your exercises, then you can sit on the treatment table, then you will get taken care of. If you don't do those 15 minutes, you're invisible, you're a ghost.
Correct.
That's pretty dramatic, pretty interesting.
It happens every Tuesday and recovery day with the Jets. Those guys come in, they have to warm up 15 minutes prior to me working on the soft tissue, or they have to warm up before they go in and get acupuncture or muscle activation or chiropractic. It's mandatory. Otherwise, you didn't do it yet, you go on the back of the list. They'll put somebody else in front of them.
And that's key, and that's important to do with clients in your gym as well.
Right.
Now this is interesting from the Hess family parents. On some phones, you can pre-send a text message up to a year in advance. For example, you could schedule in birthday wishes to help connect with your clients. So I thought that was pretty
I
interesting.
think the Androids can do that. The Apples can't do that yet, I believe.
iPhones can't do it. And Bob Asquari said, building mobility into my sessions are part of the value of training with me. So that's also key. SCW also does have a certification on corrective exercises, pretty comprehensive. Carter put the link in there. Gail, we were talking a little bit about certifications before the camera was on, and you were talking about what's going on at Crunch. Do you mind sharing that information?
Oh, sure. Our company just acquisition an additional 3 locations, so now we have 6. The 3 that we already have existing are all certified and they're all up to date. We also provide a free CPR every 2 years for the company. So the new clubs we just acquired, unfortunately, I'm going to cringe to say this, all the group exercise instructors have let their certification laxed, and the personal trainers have let theirs lapse as well. They are certified, but they let it lapse. So we are now going through, I was on deleting and looking at who is certified, who's not certified, and who has 90 days to get their certifications correct by January 1st of 2024. Otherwise, they're going to be fired. It's not even an option anymore. It has to be accredited, bottom line.
Well, and we were saying, it just, everybody just let it lapse
Yeah,
over COVID, which we get it. We couldn't teach, you know, barely, maybe online.
And it's funny, during COVID, all the certifications gave everybody a pass key and a discount to renew their certifications, which was brilliant to keep everybody current. And nobody took the opportunity of it, because when we opened back up, you know, for the first 9 months, nobody was requiring it because we're trying to get the business back and the training back. But now they're going, where's your certification? So it's
It's good. So it's coming back.